Nobody expected this. Not the experts, not the bookmakers, not even the most loyal supporters of the Giants who walked onto the pitch that day still believing in their own invincibility. In the span of a few extraordinary hours, the FIFA World Cup 2026 was turned completely upside down. 3 matches, 3 storms, and by the time the dust settled, football's oldest hierarchy had been shaken to its foundation. This is the day the underdogs refused to back down, and what unfolded across those 3 stadiums would leave fans, pundits, and entire football nations questioning everything they thought they knew about this tournament. Stay with us, because by the end of this story, you will understand why so many are now calling this the most dramatic single day in modern World Cup history. To understand why this day matters so deeply, you first have to understand what was at stake. This was not simply a set of football matches. This was the moment the so-called smaller nations stepped onto the same stage as the giants of the sport, carrying with them decades of hope, frustration, and quiet belief that someday, somehow, their moment would come. For Germany, for the Netherlands, for Brazil, this was supposed to be business as usual, another step on a familiar road toward the latter stages of the tournament. But football, in its purest and cruelest form, has never respected reputation alone. And what happened next would prove that more powerfully than anyone could have imagined. It began in Monterrey. The Netherlands, fielding a squad many believed capable of going deep into this tournament, walked into their round of 32 match against Morocco with quiet confidence. They had scored 10 goals across the group stage. They had dismantled Sweden 5-1. On paper, this was a team built for a deep run. But Morocco arrived with something far harder to measure: belief. This is a nation that not long ago stunned the entire football world by reaching the semifinals of a World Cup for the first time in their history. And on this night, in front of a global audience, they were determined to prove that moment was not a miracle, it was the beginning of something lasting. For long stretches, it appeared the Dutch would have their way. Cody Gakpo broke the deadlock in the 72nd minute, finishing a clinical move that seemed destined to send the Netherlands comfortably into the next round. But that was only the beginning. As the clock ticked deep into stoppage time, with Morocco's hopes seemingly slipping away, something extraordinary happened. Substitute Chemsdien Talbi whipped in a dangerous cross, and rising above the Dutch defense came Issa Diop, header soaring into the net in the very first minute of stoppage time. The stadium erupted. The Netherlands, seconds from victory, watched their advantage vanish in an instant. What happened next would push both teams to their absolute limit. Extra time came and went without a winner, though not without drama. Morocco thought they had found the breakthrough when Soufiane Rahimi broke through the defense, only for Dutch goalkeeper Bart Verbruggen to produce a stunning, reflex save that somehow kept his team alive. It would all come down to penalties. And in football, there are few moments more emotionally unbearable than a shootout. 11 meters of pure tension, where careers, dreams, and national pride hang on a single strike of the ball. Morocco's captain, Achraf Hakimi, missed his attempt. The Netherlands had their own misses too, but it was goalkeeper Yassine Bounou who became the hero of the night, producing a crucial save to deny Crescencio Somerville before Ismail Sabari stepped forward and calmly buried the winning penalty. Morocco had done it again. The Atlas Lions had eliminated one of European football's most storied nations, sending the Netherlands home before the knockout rounds for the first time in their World Cup history. For a country that has now, twice in recent memory, shattered the expectations placed upon them, this was not luck. This was the arrival of a new football power, one that refuses to be defined by the old hierarchy of the sport. But while the world was still processing what had just happened in Monterrey, another shock was already unfolding hundreds of miles away. This one would shake German football to its very core.
Germany, 4-time world champions. A nation whose footballing identity has been built on discipline, composure, and an almost mythical ability to find a way through when the pressure is at its highest. Their opponent, Paraguay, arrived at this stage of the tournament carrying something rare and precious: the weight of history. This was unfamiliar territory for a footballing nation rarely given the spotlight on football's grandest stage. And yet, by the end of the night, it would be Paraguay standing tall and Germany left to ask painful questions about what might have been. The match swung back and forth with relentless tension. Paraguay struck first through Julio Enciso. Germany answered through Kai Havertz, 1-1, and the contest pushed into extra time. Then came the moment that would define the entire night. In the second period of extra time, Germany believed they had scored the winning goal, Jonathan Tah rising to head home from a corner. The celebrations began. The bench emptied. For a few fleeting seconds, it felt like destiny had been secured. But the video assistant referee intervened. After a lengthy review, the goal was disallowed for a foul on Paraguay's goalkeeper in the build-up. Germany's celebration was wiped away in an instant, replaced with disbelief and frustration that would linger long after the final whistle. And then, the situation became even more agonizing. With the score still level, the match went to penalties, and here history seemed to favor Germany completely. Their record in major tournament shootouts was nearly flawless, having lost just once in decades. That record would not survive this night. Paraguay's goalkeeper produced save after crucial save, reading the German takers with uncanny precision. And in one of the cruelest twists imaginable, it was Jonathan Tah, the very player whose disallowed header had defined the match, who saw his penalty sail over the crossbar. Paraguay completed the job. The South Americans had eliminated four-time world champions Germany from the World Cup, sending shockwaves through every corner of the football world. For Germany, the questions now begin, about tactics, about leadership, about what this defeat means for the future of their national team. But for Paraguay, this was something far more powerful. This was history. A nation that had waited generations for a moment like this finally had it, and they would not let it slip away. Two giants had fallen in a matter of hours. And then came a third match that would push the entire football world to the very edge of its seat. Brazil, five-time world champions, the most successful nation in World Cup history, a team many still consider among the favorites to lift this year's trophy. Their opponent, Japan, arrived in this tournament with quiet, growing confidence, having reached the knockout stage as runners-up in their group after results that surprised many observers. What followed in Houston would become one of the most talked-about matches of the entire tournament. Japan struck first. In the 29th minute, Kaishu Sano intercepted a loose pass in midfield and unleashed a stunning strike from outside the box, sending it past Brazil's goalkeeper and into the net. The stadium fell into stunned silence. The five-time champions were behind, and Japan looked composed, organized, and dangerous. For the first time in this tournament, it felt as though one of football's true giants might fall to a result that would be remembered for generations. But Brazil are not a team that surrenders easily. In the 56th minute, Casemiro rose to meet a delivery from Gabriel Magalhães and powered a header past Japan's goalkeeper. The equalizer arrived, but Japan refused to retreat, continuing to press, continuing to believe. As the minutes ticked away, it seemed increasingly possible that this match was destined for extra time, a result that would have represented one of the most significant upsets in the tournament history. And then, with the clock reading deep into stoppage time, everything changed. A loose pass from Japan's defense was intercepted near midfield. The ball found its way to Bruno Guimaraes, who slid a perfectly weighted pass into the path of substitute Gabriel Martinelli. With his very first touch, he set himself and with his left foot curled a finish past the goalkeeper and into the net. The stadium exploded. Brazil's bench erupted in pure relief and disbelief.
In the 95th minute, the five-time champions had stolen victory from the jaws of one of the tournament's most dramatic near upsets.
Japan, who have still never won a knockout match at a World Cup, were left devastated, having come agonizingly close to writing a new chapter in their football history. 3 matches, 3 moments of pure footballing drama, and in the span of a single day, the entire landscape of this World Cup had shifted. This is what makes football, at its absolute best, so impossible to look away from. There is something deeply human about watching a smaller nation rise up against a giant. It speaks to something universal, something every person watching can understand, regardless of which country they call home. The feeling of being doubted, the feeling of being told you do not belong on the biggest stage, and the feeling of proving against every expectation that you do. Morocco's victory was not simply about football tactics. It was about a nation refusing to be defined by old assumptions about who is allowed to dream big on the world's grandest stage. Paraguay's victory was not simply about a missed penalty or a disallowed goal. It was about a country seizing a moment that may not come again for a generation and refusing to let it slip away. And Brazil's survival against Japan was a reminder that even the greatest footballing nations in history are not immune to the pressure that smaller, hungrier teams can apply when given the opportunity. For older fans who have followed this sport for decades, days like this carry a particular kind of magic. They are reminders of why football has captured the hearts of entire generations, not because the outcome is predictable, but because it almost never is. Every 4 years, the World Cup promises romance, drama, and the possibility that history can be rewritten in real time. And on this day, that promise was delivered in full. But what makes this story even more remarkable is what it means for the rest of the tournament moving forward. Morocco now advances to face co-host Canada, carrying with them the momentum and belief of a nation that has twice proven it belongs among football's elite. Paraguay moves forward into territory their football history has rarely allowed them to imagine. And Brazil, despite surviving, now faces uncomfortable questions about their first-half fragility. Questions that will need answers if they hope to lift the trophy once again. Meanwhile, Germany and the Netherlands are left to reflect on what went wrong, on decisions that will be debated for years, and on a tournament that ended far earlier than either nation ever expected. This is the beauty and the cruelty of knockout football. There are no second chances. There is no tomorrow. Every match carries the weight of an entire nation's hopes, and on this day, that weight proved too much for 2 of football's traditional giants to bear. As the tournament moves forward, one truth has become impossible to ignore. The old hierarchy of world football is no longer guaranteed. The gap between the so-called giants and the so-called underdogs has never felt smaller. And if this single day has taught us anything, it is that no team, regardless of history, regardless of trophies, regardless of reputation, can afford to take anything for granted in this tournament. The road to the 2026 World Cup final has already produced moments that will be remembered for generations. And as the knockout stage continues, one thing is absolutely certain. Nobody is safe. Nobody can predict what comes next, and perhaps the biggest shock of this tournament is still yet to come.